The ultimatum, the impasse in the final negotiation. On June 8, 1963, Omar bin Mon, Chief Minister, led the Brunei delegation to continue the negotiations with the Tunku and his cabinet. Members of the delegation were Pengiran Dato Sensia Haji Muhammad Ali, Deputy Chief Minister, Pengiran Dato Sensia Haji Muhammad Yusof, Deputy Secretary of State, Dato Paduka Neil Lawson, Queen Counsel, Constitutional Advisor to the Sultan, Idris Talik Davies, Attorney General, John Lee, State Financial Officer, Haji Muhammad Jamil Umar, Chairman of Education Committee, and Awang Isa bin Pehin Datu Perdana Menteri Haji Ibrahim, interpreter. However, the negotiations reached an impasse. The Brunei delegation said that they needed to consult the Sultan on the entitlement to any revenue arising from new sources, including new oil discoveries made during the 10-year period. Dato Lawson sent a telegram requesting the Sultan to come immediately to Kuala Lumpur. On June 15, the Sultan and his entourage flew to Kuala Lumpur to join the Brunei delegation in the final negotiations regarding Brunei's entry into Malaysia. On June 17, 1963, a meeting took place between the Tunku and the Sultan in the cabinet room in the Parliament building. At this juncture, there were 4 important issues still to be resolved that did not include the issue of precedence. 1. The question of new oil discoveries during the 10-year period of Brunei joining the Federation. 2. The term, annual voluntary donation. 3. The question of mines and minerals, and 4. The question of the arrangements after the first 10 years of Brunei's membership of the Federation. During this meeting, the Sultan was asked to replace the word annual voluntary donation the word annual voluntary gift. Secondly, it was suggested that the annual payment of 40 million ringgit imposed on Brunei would be reviewed again after 10 years. Both the suggestions were rejected by the Sultan. As regards the financial issue, Brunei agreed that there would be a review 10 years after Brunei joined Malaysia, but it would not include the reserves. In regard to the reserves, Brunei invested its money overseas, mostly in the United Kingdom. The investments were handled by a Crown agent until 1979, when the Brunei Investment Agency, BIA, was established. In addition, Brunei was not prepared to accept terms that imposed an obligation to pay a share of revenues from future oil discoveries. No agreement was reached and the negotiations ended in a deadlock. Dato Lawson, the Sultan's constitutional advisor, said, "Last February, 1963, the Sultan had received an assurance from the Federation that the special interests of Brunei would be protected. Subsequently, negotiations in Kuala Lumpur had resulted in drafts of agreement. This, however, was followed by a letter from the Tunku to His Highness the Sultan, and further exchanges, which showed that there were in fact wide differences between Malaya and Brunei. Negotiations were resumed in Kuala Lumpur in June, but the results have been unsatisfactory. Thus, it was already clear there was still disagreement between the two governments about the issues of future oil discoveries in Brunei, taxation of mines and minerals, and the appropriate name for and amount of the annual contribution.